Well, what do we want? So we got two things to talk about off the top. Which one do you want to hurt me with?
Well, let's start with the college football thing.
Okay.
Let's get some closure on college football because NFL's still going.
All right. Yeah. So Notre Dame goes to the national championship in a miraculous run and gets just drowned by Ohio State yesterday, 34-23. Truthfully, even the game being that close was a little bit of a surprise, or in terms of like the final score, it's kind of a bloodbath. I mean, Ohio State is
at halftime.
Did you go?
No, I did not. My fiance is a massive Ohio State fan, so I wanted to watch the game.
Wow, I forgot about that.
Two, and her whole family, so they were loving it. So congrats to them. And two, I just
that's brutal.
I'm traveling for the next 3 weeks with work, and I was like, I can't get one more trip on the schedule. But my brothers were there; they had a great time. Not obviously get the W, but you saw that Ohio State. I mean, I've been saying this for a while. From a draft perspective, they're like Michigan last year. They're going to have far and away the most players drafted. You point to a player position on that roster, he's probably going to be drafted in the top 5 rounds next year. It's just like this is a team that was always going to be the case when they brought back. I mean, they had numerous guys, whether it was Denzel Burke, the cornerback, JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, who, before NIL, they would be in the NFL right now.
I love that guy, Jack Sawyer.
Yes.
He is a maniac.
Yes. And all came back to school. A bunch of guys that couldn't.
You want to get mad at somebody? You want to get mad at somebody for that? Get mad at Rick Spielman.
Yeah, was he the one who gave him all bad grades?
He
helps out with Ohio State.
Yeah. He convinces guys to go back to school.
Well, I think there's more money in it now.
Well, true, but look, it's
they got that Epstein money.
And you know what? That's exactly what's wrong with college football, right there, right there. I'm okay. I want all these guys to get paid. I want every one of them to be paid. But you can't have the disparity between a team like Ohio State who can pay $20 million and another team that can pay $3 million. Mm-hmm. It's just not right. It's like that's why I sent out a tweet last night. So which blue blood who pays everybody the most money is going to be the favorite next year to win it? It's not. That's right.
What you guys deal with at Arizona State. You guys got a great young coach who only has a certain budget to be able to pay for these incredibly talented players that Ohio State features week in, week out, year in, year out. How can you guys expect to compete in the playoffs?
There's aberration seasons. You're going to have the aberration seasons, and that's it.
Yeah.
And but ASU's actually done really well in the portal, so I can't. They must be doing it too. But
I mean, if you've ever spent time in Tempe,
well, yeah.
Sign me up,
Well, you can get a guy in Caleb Downs, the safety for Ohio State, who's not even draft eligible. When he is, will be a first rounder more likely than not, who is a freshman All-American at Alabama. This guy wasn't transferring from North Dakota State to go play at a higher level of football. He was basically just, I am great. I'm going to the highest bidder sort of thing. Like that to me is where those sort of stories, it's like, I get it. That's the new wave of college football, but that's turning a lot of people off when you have these mercenaries. I mean, basically guys who every single year can go to the highest paid.
Well, think about it. The quarterback was a transfer in. The guy who had the big run was a transfer in. I mean, you mentioned Downs, who's a great player. He's going to be a first round pick. I agree with you. And that ain't right. And then they talk about, well, they spent most of their money keeping everybody. Okay, but you're still keeping them because you have the money to do it. I think college football is in a real shaky situation right now. And they always go, well, the same teams win in the NFL too. You have a cap. You have to make rules underneath the cap.
That's a bullshit way to say it.
It's a terrible argument.
It's a cop out. Because, Mike and I have talked about this before, and you brought up a great point. There used to be a sanctity to days like senior day and getting to watch a freshman develop, sophomore, junior, become a senior, and then have an opportunity to go play. And I was just thinking about it. When I was a kid, you go to these college football games. I grew up in Charlottesville, Virginia, where UVA is, and it was never a blue blood in terms of success. They weren't winning a BCS game every year, but you got an opportunity to get your record to a point where you can get an invite to the Continental Tire Bowl. And it was a religious experience getting to watch these guys that you followed from young men, players like Marcus Hagans, my older brother, Chris. These guys that I was actual fans of, you could count on them to be there next year. That's just not the same anymore. The whole process has been bastardized. And it's a shame because there's a lot that youth is going to miss out on in terms of sanctity and
tradition.
That's the word. It's non-traditional now.
Like I saw your quarterback after the game. He was half whimpering about his time at Notre Dame and how it was special and everything. You were there for a year. Yeah.
I struggle with that too. I mean, like Riley Leonard, I love him as person. Like, seems like an awesome guy, awesome fit for Notre Dame's culture. But it also was like, it was difficult to really feel that tied to a guy who just came over from Duke after playing for 3 years there. It's like, and the same thing before with Sam Hartman. It kind of reduces it. And I wondered all year, I'll just say this now. We were going to go on today's show. We have the power rankings, we have the rate my take segment, and we have the great debate. My rate my take segment was going to be that college football is firmly on the decline. And I think they're in big trouble if someone wants to come in and do a minor league, someone Saudi money, someone who really wants to put together a minor league, because that's all they've become at this point. And I think they're really at high risk of losing fans, because I myself in Notre Dame, in a year where they make the national championship game, I was as disengaged during the regular season as I've ever been for a Notre Dame football season. It's just hard to get up for games when they don't mean that much. You watched Ohio State lose to Michigan the weekend after Thanksgiving. Less than 2 months ago, they lost what should have been.
Ryan Day got laughed out of the building.
In any playoff format previously, Ryan Day is no longer the head coach at Ohio State, right? Like it changed their fortunes entirely. But for that game to just be basically meaningless now, right, in the new format with what we're doing and just letting any team, basically any powerhouse that's talented enough, if you lose 2 games or fewer, you are in the mix and could even have a better chance at winning it, or a better path towards winning it, than the team that was the #1 overall seed because of how it got seeded.
I agree with you.
I agree with you. Where all the things that we were talking about the tradition, the loyalty, these teams, like the things that people loved about college football that made it this different product from the NFL, they're all going by the wayside. And so if you're, only have so much time during the day to focus on one or the other, or you're a diehard college football fan for all the reasons because of that, well, it's no longer that.
Well, here's the other thing. Okay. The NFL plays their 4 games this weekend. It's all anybody's talking about. There's a college game tonight.
Yep.
They had no buzz. There was no buzz.
Shine.
First off, they need to start the playoff earlier. Look, when was the 1AA playoff game? The championship game was about 3 weeks ago. That's what they need to do. Start them. You can't get them going, because if you start going,
show that game and then roll it right into the broadcast of the big one.
Go.
Yes, the bigger one. They're both big.
That's what they need to do.
No offense.
They need to. Did you have any buzz yesterday at all?
I was at dinner. I was eating Italian food.
I'm telling you, the average sports fan, I'm not the diehard, the average sports fan had no idea that game was even being played. 0. Oh, they were talking about what Lamar Jackson didn't beat the Bills, and that's all they were talking about. That game had no buzz. If it wasn't the network that was broadcasting the game, there was really no buzz to it.
And the fan bases, it's not like we had small fan bases, right? It was 2 of the biggest in college football. Yes. But I 100% agree. I think college football, the part that made it differentiate from the NFL was every single game was your national championship game 15 years ago. Every single game, every single weekend.
It was playoffs.
Big regular season matchups were playoff games.
The irony of them adding playoffs and eliminating the playoff mentality, the irony there is ridiculous. Yes. And I want to go back to something you said about developmental league. When we were younger, there were soccer, I remember the first time I heard about a 15-year-old soccer player being claimed by a club. Freddie Adu.
Yeah, remember? Freddie Adu. Yeah.
He was a phenom. He was a young phenom. And what did the pros do? They scooped him up and they developed him. Are we at the point now where, you said it, college football is dead? I mean, it may as well be done in the next few years. Are we going to see, what does that developmental league look like? You talked about live money, something like that.
Well, I think they're just wide open.
Scooping junior high kids up and put them in an IMG style facility and just get them into football. And
well, just like an age range, you have, from ages, say 17 to 23, you're allowed to play in this league. And it's purely you get that window. I think there's an opportunity for someone to put money behind it. And again, if you're a fan of the college football product now, but they took all the good players because they were able to pay them more, well, you'd probably be a fan of that too. And it would probably draw more NFL fans if the NFL wanted to partner with it to put their team names behind it. I just think you're really opening the door for something like that.
And then college football would become the Ivy League.
Yes.
That's who would be playing in college, the big
and
college
I think they're really biting off a little too much money right now and leaving themselves wide open for a strong competitor like that.
Well, they also need to, if they're going to stay doing what they're doing, they need to cap it. You got to have a cap. We got to work within the salary cap.
Yeah.
The
collective bargaining agreement.
All these teams are hiring general managers. There's a lot of former NFL general managers that are interviewing for jobs because they're paying them so much money to handle all that stuff. Now, back to your point about the regular. I was engaged this year more than I've ever been because every game Arizona State played did matter.
Yeah.
If they don't win their games, they're not in.
Yep.
So every single game along the way, that BYU, it mattered the whole way. And you're right. I was so engaged. But now if you're a good team and you lose one game, you're like, we'll still win the rest of them, come right around and win.
It maybe made like the mid-tier more engaging because they have a chance. You're a Boise State fan, so more engaged. But I just remember that 2019 Alabama LSU game, how up I was for that game. I was like, this game is going to be like, because it had so much on the line on it. I mean, Georgia plays Texas, and I'm like, they lost. Okay.
Do you remember when Manziel went to Alabama and beat them?
Yeah.
It's
like I'll never forget that Saturday. But there are so many of these forgettable Saturdays with matchups that should have you drooling, like the one you just talked about.
And that's things like every Saturday, there probably is a good game that comes down to the wire that you can like put your attention to. Now with these playoff games, it's like they're all island games. So if one of them kind of stinks, it leaves this bad taste in your mouth. And obviously we're lucky to have some very good ones down the stretch. But if they're not good in a given year, I think the advertisers, I think they have a big problem brewing on their hands, and this is only the tip of the iceberg.
Is Notre Dame going to get a quarterback who can pass next year?
Steve Angeli.
I heard this guy was like Josh Allen, though. Someone said it was like Josh Allen. Remember that?
Yeah, I told you that. It was Colin Coward, I think, sent that out.
I mean, honestly, I would have, after that first drive where he came back, Riley Leonard, and puked on the bench, something was off about him. The guy could not throw to save his life yesterday. I would have put in Angeli at some point. Now I guess why they didn't, but Angeli was better passer all year long. He just
I don't think Riley Leonard can pass at all.
Yeah, so that was tough to
watch. What's your draft evaluation? What's your draft?
I'd move him to wide receiver.
What's your draft evaluation? What's your draft evaluation on him?
It's move him to wide receiver. He's not a quarterback. So